Started right here on time. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Rasmussen. I'm president of Buzzards Bay Coalition. I want to welcome you all to the 28th annual meeting of the Buzzards Bay Coalition. And thank you all for being here with us tonight. It's wonderful every year to see friends from around the whole Bay come together each year for this event at this annual meeting. Tonight coming in, we have folks in far west as Michon Point and a really great representation from Woods Hole. I think we have John Farrington from Woods Hole, we have Peg Brandon from SEA, we have the MBL, the Woods Hole Research Center, a great collection of folks from Woods Hole. And this idea, this at its core, was the founding idea of this organization, that citizens from all the Bay's towns needed to come together with one voice to fight for and sustain a clean and healthy Bay. Today, you here are that coalition, and this is the organization that you continue to create every day. So it's also great to be here at Bay Point, just up the road from Onset Bay, where the coalition has some really big plans underway. Just last month, Wareham Town Meeting authorized the 99-year lease of the historic Onset Bathhouse to the coalition to create a center for on-the-water exploration and engagement. And next month, we will purchase the iconic Wickets Island in the middle of Onset Bay. The island, along with the lands at Burgess Point, will form the basis of a new complex of lands, waters, and active outdoor programs designed to connect everyone at a very personal level to Bay protection. More on that at next year's annual meeting. For those of you who've been following this project, you know there's much more to be done before anywhere close to declaring victory on this major new initiative, but really exciting stuff ahead. What I'd like to do right now, though, is take a very quick look on at the past year and on what the Buzzards Bay Coalition was able to accomplish with your support in 2015. You've all received our annual report in your mailboxes at home. There are copies on your seats here tonight. It's an excellent overview of not only the year, but if you look at it, it's also a great summary of how we work and what's on the horizon for us. It's also a very different format this year, and I hope you agree. I think it's probably the best annual report we've ever produced. Overall, the report documents what really was an exceptional year for the Buzzards Bay Coalition. The projects completed and initiatives underway are strong investments in the future of our Bay and region, and they point the way, and this is what I think is so exciting about them, they point the way to a lot of great work ahead. Take the three projects highlighted in the annual report: our work on West Falmouth Harbor, at Nascatucket Bay, and at the Acushnet Sawmill. Leading the way on nitrogen pollution, saving the most important Bay landscapes, restoring broken rivers and habitats, and expanding a healthy bay for access to a healthy bay for all. These are outstanding achievements all on their own, if we did nothing else, but they're not endpoints. The reason we're so excited about these projects is because they're models. We will replicate and improve upon them in the years ahead over and over again. So here's how we look at each of these three ideas, these projects. The Acushnet Sawmill is not simply the best waterfront park created on New Bedford in decades. And if those of you who have not had the chance to see the Acushnet Sawmill, please make an effort to get there and see this wonderful new place. But it's not just a park. It's a template that we will use now to restore fish and wetlands at dozens of similarly degraded sites on all of the Bay's rivers. And next up, we are applying this model right here in Wareham on the Weweantic River at the Horseshoe Dam, giving us the opportunity to open up the Bay's largest river-to-fish passage and tidal flow it has not seen in centuries. On land protection, take the 411 acres on Nascatucket Bay. That was not simply last year the largest land preservation on the Bay in a generation. It was, but we will apply that public-private funding model. We raised $6.3 million for that project with very little investment from the towns and from private donors. We will now be able to apply that model to thousands of new projects around the Bay region. And right now, for those of you who are here from Dartmouth, you know we are applying this model directly to the protection of nearly all the remaining unprotected land, 225 acres on Allen's Pond in Dartmouth, a truly extraordinary landscape that we're able to use the exact same ideas and model we produce at Nascatucket to save Allen's Pond. And lastly, the installation of 20 new nitrogen-removing septic systems on West Falmouth Harbor is not simply another step in our ongoing restoration of this degraded waterway, a project we've been at now for more than 15 years, but neighborhoods all along the Bay will be able to apply this model to select technology and engage homeowners to create workable local solutions to wastewater. Next up, the exciting thing about this one is we can apply this model absolutely everywhere. Septic systems remain the Bay's greatest challenge, and what we're doing on West Falmouth will be a model for neighborhoods all across the region. So these three successes tell you a lot about how the successes we're having and how we're thinking about our work in the days ahead. And they're built around what I consider the Coalition's unique approach to these type of issues, led by strong collaborations with towns, neighborhoods, and landowners, a commitment to always trying to seek out new ways to solve tough problems, and just an unabashed doggedness. We stick with these things. And they were all made possible by the amazing support of all of you, our members, the extraordinary talent of our staff, and a careful hand of an outstanding board of directors. So thank you to you all. I encourage you all to reach out to our great staff tonight. I'll introduce them a little bit later. If you want to get information on any of the projects that are in their annual report and what that means for your corner of the Bay. We will not linger much more tonight on the past. As has become our tradition, we pride ourselves in trying to be the shortest annual meeting you'll go to this year. So that simpler format means we spend more time focusing on the great people that make up this organization and our wonderful Guardian awardees. So I want to get right to the business part and get that out of the way. I'd like to officially call to order the 28th annual meeting of the Buzzards Bay Coalition, and I'll ask for a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of the May 21st, 2015 that were provided on the back of your agenda. Thank you. We all thank you for that. Thank you. And so I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. I'll note simply the inclusion of the Treasury report is at the back of your annual report tonight. Both our finance director, Stephanie Fournier over here, and our board treasurer, Sam Gray from Wareham, right here in front, would both be happy to speak to anybody who has questions about our finances, but we're just presenting them to you tonight. So with that, I'll call up Laura Ryan Shakoy, chair of our board of directors, to present the proposed slate for election on behalf of our executive committee. Laura.
Okay. Thanks, Mark, and welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. We have kind of an important piece of business, but I'll try to move quickly, but it's the election of our directors. On behalf of the executive committee, we propose that the following be elected and re-elected as members of the board of directors, and I'll ask that we just take one vote for the entire slate at the end. New members for election to a 3-year term: Tally Garfield of Dartmouth. Tally grew up in Dartmouth and has deep family ties to the Elizabeth Islands across the bay. She was on the Buzzards Bay Coalition board from 1996 to 2007, serving as chair for 3 years. Her work is focused on wetlands protection, land conservation, and water quality projects. She served 6 years on the Dartmouth Conservation Commission, 18 years as a trustee of the Massachusetts Environmental Trust, and 8 years on the board of the Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust, where she was president during the acquisition and founding of the Lloyd Center for the Environment. In 2007, she and her husband, John, put a permanent conservation restriction on their 20 acres in Dartmouth. She's a 1989 recipient of the Buzzards Bay Guardian Award, 2014 recipient of the Coalition Staff Volunteer Appreciation Award, and basically an overall Bay volunteer mega rock star for us. Moving to our next exceptional new board director, we have Mike Huguenin of Mattapoisett. Mike discovered Buzzards Bay in 1974 and has sailed and fished the bay's waters and shorelines extensively since then. He and his wife, Sharon Chown, bought a summer cottage on Mattapoisett Neck in 1984 and retired to a new home that they built there in 2010. And I say retired because retirement, I don't think, has meant being very quiet for Mike and his wife. They're very busy. Mike's business career was in management and environmental consulting, primarily as co-founder and president of Industrial Economics, Inc., located in Cambridge. In retirement, Mike serves on the institutional biosafety committees of Partners Healthcare and the Broad Institute, and locally as president of the Mattapoisett Land Trust. He holds degrees in physics and in management from Washington University in St. Louis and from the Sloan School at MIT. Steve Smith of Mattapoisett. Steve was Executive Director of the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, SERPED, for 32 years until his retirement in 2015. SERPED is a public planning agency for land use, economic development, transportation, and the environment in southeastern Massachusetts. He was a founder and active in the Coalition for Buzzards Bay in its earliest days, serving as president of the board of directors from 1991 to 1994. Steve has a bachelor's degree in economics from Colgate University and a master's degree from the University of Rhode Island. He spent many hours sailing and racing on Buzzards Bay and nearby waters. After spending much of his life living in Freetown, Steve recently built a home with his wife Maria in Mattapoisett. And if Mike, Tally, and Steve would just stand up so we could see them. All right. For re-election to the board, to 3-year terms, we have Tom Gidwitz of Dartmouth, Sam Gray of Wareham, Weatherly Doris of Quistit, and Chris Neal of Falmouth. For 1-year terms, Hans Brennickmeyer of Dartmouth, Paul Elias of Nashon Island, Sam Knight of Dartmouth, and Scott Zane of North Falmouth. I move that the slate be elected as presented.
Can I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Okay. Great. Before I hand the meeting back over to Mark, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Jay Lanigan from New Bedford and to Dave Wonar of Acushnet, who are on our board through just till the end of 2015. We're very grateful for their service and all they did for the coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Welcome, Mike, Steve, and Tally. Welcome back, Tally and Steve. This is it's nice to have people who are at the coalition's early days and founding back to bring their experience to the coalition. So we're very happy to have all of you back. Before we move on to our awards for the night, I do want to pause for a moment and make sure that we mark the passing of George Hampson of Falmouth last October. As many of you know, George was one of the 3 incorporators of this organization. It's George's signature on the paperwork that created the Buzzards Bay Coalition. He was our chair from 1994 to 1997. He was a dear friend to all of us at the coalition, and his impact on us in the Bay will be felt for a very long time. So we're very much missing George this year. On a much lighter note, 1 month from tomorrow will mark the day 20 years ago that a kid from a Pennsylvania dairy farm joined the coalition staff to help us build one of the best volunteer water quality monitoring programs in the country. Yes, it has been 2 decades since Tony Williams came to Buzzards Bay, if any of you can believe it. So Tony has officially served on the coalition staff more consecutive years on staff than any other person in coalition history. So how many people in the room tonight are Bay Watchers? Ever have been? Great, okay, good group of Bay Watchers. For those of you that don't know, Bay Watchers are our water quality volunteers who go out every morning to collect water quality for us between May and September, once a week, all summer long. We have many here tonight in the audience, and I know that all of you know why Tony stayed so long in this role. It's because Tony loves working with Bay Watcher volunteers, he loves our mission, and you all know how good he is at engaging and supporting now more than 1,000 volunteers over his tenure, collecting critical water quality data about the coalition. So you've all seen him at our dockside trainings, and you get his hands-on trainings, but I don't know if all of you know that a lot of that sort of charisma that comes up at Tony's trainings with you all comes from Tony's early career actually as a performer with Up With People. I don't know if you all know this. So I actually think yeah, see, you can do the dance still. So I actually think it's that spark, that Up With People spark, that you can still see on the dock sometimes at a Bay Watchers training. So seriously, Tony, on behalf of the board and staff, and I know all of your loyal Bay Watchers, thank you for your dedication and commitment to this organization. So speaking of volunteers, not just Bay Watchers, all of you are absolutely critical to our ability to do our work on behalf of Buzzards Bay. Whether it's through being a water quality volunteer, pro bono legal assistance, public education, land stewardship volunteers, special events, volunteers help expand our footprint and help us accomplish so much more than our staff could do every day. To recognize volunteers who go out of their way to make a difference at the Coalition, each year the Coalition staff gets together to nominate, debate, and select a recipient for a Volunteer Appreciation Award. So representing the staff, I'd like to call up the Coalition's event manager, Deb Hood, to present this year's Volunteer Award. Deb.
Good evening. On behalf of the staff of the Buzzards Bay Coalition, I have the pleasure of presenting the 2016 Volunteer Appreciation Award to a dedicated volunteer who's chosen to serve in a very specific and very wonderful way through our annual events. A massage therapist by trade, Kevin Childs was approached many years ago about donating his post-swim massage services for our swimmers at the Buzzards Bay Swim. Kevin agreed, enjoyed the experience, and has not missed a year since, in 15 years. His is not a task for mere mortals. Our swimmers are often cold and tired and cramped after swimming more than a mile. Massage is a way to help them feel cared for and supported, and that truly matters because our swimmers regularly raise over $100,000 for the Coalition every year. Kevin works with our swimmers for 3 hours straight, often without a break, seeing as many of them as he can before the event ends. One year we actually had to take the tent down around him because he was finishing tending to the last swimmer at the very end of the swim. And then 5 years ago, we also signed on to volunteer for our watershed ride in the same capacity. So now, twice a year, without fail, you can find Kevin Childs at our outdoor events, giving back to Buzzards Bay, one athlete at a time, contributing in the most personal and hands-on way imaginable. Kevin, through your years of service, you have brought a warmth and a dedication to the Coalition's work that would be impossible to replace. Our events would not be the same without you. So on behalf of the entire staff and membership of the Coalition, we sincerely thank you for your service. Please come forward to accept your award. You're welcome.
Thanks. Kevin just said it was all for the free beer and pizza we provide at the Volunteer Award. Thank you, Kevin. Actually, I believe there are swimmers who wouldn't come back. We get asked, will the massage guy be there? So it's very important. So now to move on to our other awards of the night, the Buzzards Bay Guardian Award. And every year I like to actually read the original idea behind the Guardian from 28 years ago. And I'm just going to do that right now. So for 28 years now, the Buzzards Bay Guardian has served as the highest honor granted by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. A Buzzards Bay Guardian must have demonstrated outstanding service in the cleanup, restoration, or protection of the bay. Their work may be as a citizen volunteer, as an organization, as a public official or employee. And you'll see all of those tonight. This work may involve education, advocacy, community activism, or indeed any activity that furthers the health of the bay. Most importantly, a Buzzards Bay Guardian is an unsung hero who deserves public recognition not only for what they have achieved, but to inspire others to make a difference. I've always thought that with the Coalition that we here at this annual meeting every year tell our best stories, express our values, and explain what's most important to us as a community-based organization through the Guardian Awards we grant each year. And this year, once again, is a wonderful example of that, with well-deserved awards going to people who have made a difference in nitrogen pollution reduction, cleanup of marine debris, and stream restoration. And we are proud again this year, and I hope you all take a chance to take a look at them tonight, to present the Bay Scallop Award that in every way is a product of Buzzards Bay, carved from Cuttyhunk driftwood by New Bedford, now Mattapoisett artist John Magnan. So with that, I'd like to call up the Coalition's senior attorney, Corin Peterson, who will present the first Guardian Award of the night to Horace Fields.
Good evening. Not quite as tall as Mark. Every pollution issue facing Buzzards Bay should be as lucky as Brant Island Cove to have a champion like Horace Fields, an unwavering advocate whose diligence and forethought led to the cleanup of a major pollution source in the cove. As a child growing up in Mattapoisett, the love of the ocean seeded itself fast and deep for Horace. After his family moved when he was 12, he returned to Mattapoisett as soon as he could, and in the 1960s, purchased 7.5 acres along one of the most picturesque salt marshes in all of Buzzards Bay. It wasn't until the late 90s did Horace retire full-time to the cove. However, Horace's definition of retirement may not be the same as it is for most folks. It wasn't long into his retirement that he became the shellfish warden and harbor master for the town. He also joined the coalition as a Baywatcher water quality monitoring volunteer. After years of working to get back to the ocean he loved, I think he felt particularly insulted, and that's probably putting it mildly, when he found that the salt marsh throughout Brant Island Cove looked more like a landfill than the ecological jewel of his childhood. That's when in January 2013, we received a series of phone calls and a very comprehensive photo documentation describing extensive styrofoam pollution in Brant Island Cove. The pictures showed pieces of styrofoam as small as a grain of rice to 8-foot-long chunks. The styrofoam had littered this beautiful cove, clogging the marsh soils and smothering the grasses. It was so bad that it looked like it had snowed in August. Imagine all of these small white grains of rice littering the marsh from the roots to the rack line. Horace was insistent that we witness this pollution firsthand. And on several cold winter mornings, Horace and I, together with a small army of legal interns from the Harvard Law School Environmental Litigation Clinic, traveled the marsh documenting the extent of the debris. They wanted to know what it would be like to be an advocate, so here we go. The source of the pollution was the local marina, which was using styrofoam floats for their docks. The floats were old, and the styrofoam was beating off in various sizes from large chunks to these small beads, and the prevailing winds just pushed it all up into Brant Island Cove. Horace brought this issue to the attention of the local Conservation Commission. And night after night at the conservation meetings, he stood together with the coalition and his neighbors for at least 2 years advocating for this cleanup. And on those rare occasions when he couldn't be at the meetings, he would be watching from his home, texting and emailing with arguments and advice. Having convinced the marina that upgrading the floats to encapsulated floats was the right thing to do, we were now discussing how fast it could be done. The coalition and Horace argued for a tighter time frame, much faster than the marina was willing to agree to. But in the end, the marina surprised us all and had all the floats replaced within a year. I think mostly to stop hearing from me and Horace. Regardless, the pollution source was shut off. Today, the condition of Brant Island salt marsh is much improved. All the flotation at the marina has been replaced, and all but the smallest pieces of styrofoam have been removed from the marsh. The marsh is once again that bright spot that captured Horace's heart all those years ago. It is watchdogs like Horace that I wish I could replicate throughout Buzzards Bay. He is diligent, strategic, and thorough, and he is a force to be reckoned with. In recognition of his outstanding leadership and fortitude in cleaning up Brant Island Cove, the Buzzards Bay Coalition is pleased to honor Horace Field with the Buzzards Bay Guardian Award.
I got a call the other day from Mr. Rasmussen, and he told me that I was going to get some sort of an award. I didn't know what it was. But I'm very happy to have it. I'm pleased and proud. And that cove is a beautiful place now. You really should have seen it. It was a mess. And I own some 1,700 feet of waterfront there, and I was I was going to do something about it, no matter what. And so it all happened thanks to the coalition. I first put together a notebook and wrote a letter to our selectmen. I've yet to receive even acknowledgement that they received it. That was in 2005. So I tried the coalition, and of course I got some immediate response for that, because it's kind of a no-brainer. When you see the marshes covered with this stuff and you know where it comes from, someone has issued a permit that they shouldn't have, and without a lot of thought to it, and it wasn't the coalition. It's fixed now, and it'll stay that way. And thank you so much for this.
Horace is right. When this one first came across the transom, it was a no-brainer. We knew that what the pollution source was, we knew where it was coming from, and yet it still took 2 years to clean it up completely. And so that's the persistence that it takes to stay with these things. So thank you, Horace, everybody. And for those of you who have all not ever heard of Brant Island Cove, go sneak in there. It's one of the most beautiful places on the entire bay. So our next award, I want to call up our Vice President of Watershed Protection, Brendan Annette, to recognize Steve Hurley of the Massachusetts Division of Fish and Wildlife.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. Not quite as brilliant as Corin. Buzzards Bay is one of the few places where salter brook trout still exist. Whether you're interested in fish and fishing or not, salters are arguably a perfect symbol of wild nature. They're highly sensitive, requiring clean, cold water and an undisturbed environment. We find them where the environment is still intact. Of course, even here, they are threatened by disturbance, pollution, and the way we develop this watershed. It takes a lot of effort to ensure that Buzzards Bay continues to support these fish. And while many are involved in this important work, many actually in this room here tonight, for the past quarter century, one person has been at the center of it all. At a time when salters were threatened with the possibility of just disappearing forever, Steve Hurley has carefully guided and connected a variety of different efforts throughout this region, resulting in improved awareness and stewardship of these unique and valuable fish. Your grandchildren will be able to experience and enjoy salter brook trout in Buzzards Bay, just as your grandparents may have, in part because of Steve Hurley. Since the early 1990s, Steve has served as a fisheries manager for the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. His responsibilities are wide-ranging, involving all species and all types of fish and fishing in rivers, ponds, and lakes, from the Boston suburbs out to the Cape and Islands. But very early in his career, Steve recognized the uniqueness and the value of the remaining salters in this area, and that he could make an important impact in the conservation of these fish and the watersheds that they rely on. Whether in his office here in Buzzards Bay, presenting to community groups or in town halls, or working in these little streams that flow under the roads that you and I drive over every day, Steve has been making a difference. Years ago, I asked Steve what I could do to help salters in their river. He told me something that I've never forgotten: protect the land. Steve has been integral to protecting lands along streams like Red Brook right here in Wareham, the Quashnet River in Falmouth, and most recently advising and guiding the coalition's work to protect more than 100 acres on Angeline Brook in Westport. Steve has given technical guidance and leadership to many successful restoration projects, most notably Red Brook and Century Bog right around the corner from where we sit, but also the Quashnet River in Falmouth and the Coonamessett River in Falmouth, and others throughout the region, including our efforts on the Acushnet, the Sipican, and the Weweantic. He works in a field steeped in historic tradition, but Steve's point of view and his decisions have always been guided by the latest available science. He has tirelessly monitored and assessed fish populations, water temperature, and chemistry. He's worked hard to support and advance knowledge about these fish and their habitats by supporting cutting-edge research using genetic markers, radio tags, sonic tags, fiber optic cables, and high-tech water quality instruments. Steve recently contributed to a multi-state, range-wide assessment of salter brook trout that guides conservation and management in Massachusetts and beyond. Steve has made and advised on numerous policy and management decisions that have resulted in a more sustainable balance of fish and their habitat and angling. Notably, the discontinuation of stocking non-native brown trout in wild salter brook trout streams, and the expansion of catch and release only waters. If there's something happening on or being proposed in southeastern Massachusetts that threatens a salter stream, Steve is aware of it and he's acting on it. He's regularly speaking out to share the story of salters to help communities understand their value and their sensitivity. For his quarter century of conviction, commitment to science, and advancement of watershed conservation and restoration, resulting in better awareness and stewardship, we are proud to honor Steve Hurley with the Buzzards Bay Guardian Award. Now, unfortunately, Steve, whose office is just right around the corner, is not here tonight. He's picking up his son at college in Western New York. But to accept the award for Steve is Frances Smith of Falmouth, a very appropriate choice that, for many, many reasons. But two, one, it was Fran who introduced me to fly fishing in Buzzards Bay at an undisclosed location in Bourne. And it was Fran who introduced me to Steve Hurley many, many years ago. Fran, if you'd come up and accept the Guardian Award for Steve.
You be quiet. Steve came to the Quashnet River about 15 years after we began the restoration effort there. And he said to me, he said, I know you know what you're doing, and I'm going to leave you alone until I catch up. And indeed, Steve did exactly that. He's made 2 recommendations to us, and essentially they've proven to be perfect recommendations. One of the things, though, that he did that you may or may not be aware of, and I'll try to put in very simple terms for you, is that he instituted a program on several of the streams in southeastern Massachusetts, including Red Brook, that flows into Buttermilk Bay, that tracks the movement of sea-run brook trout. It is a pit tag program. A pit tag is a passive integrated telemetry tag. It's the same thing as an Easy Pass tag. So if you go through the toll booth on the Mass Pike, you are exciting a little teeny spring-loaded glass-covered device that sends back a 10-digit number, which causes you to get a bill in the mail. The difference between the Mass Pike and Red Brook, or the Quashnet River, is that with the pit tags inserted into these fish, he's able to determine who they are, where they were caught, their sex, because that's been recorded. He knows their movements because they're passing through antennas and leaving this 10-digit number behind. And some remarkable things have happened. He took brook trout from the Quashnet River, put them in the Childs River, where they were extirpated by a cranberry grower using poison in a bad way, and restored that population of fish. He took brook trout from the Mashpee River and put them in the Coonamessett River and restored that population of fish. So all of those streams have pit-tagged brook trout in them, and he's able to track their movements. And each year he goes back in and catches these little yearling brook trout and takes a hypodermic needle, and right through here in that pit tag goes into their body cavity, and it swims around in there and stays there their entire life. I've always asked them when we're doing this electroshocking, which is a non-lethal method of catching these fish, and of course they're mostly yearling fish, although we do recapture a lot of older fish, if we should be bringing tartar sauce and lemon juice. He always laughs. Steve's a great guy. I don't think sea run brook trout would be anywhere in this world without that man in the position that he's in. And I will certainly make sure he gets this. Thank you very much.
All right, so our last Guardian Award of the evening goes to Guy Campina here of Wareham. So think with me for a second. What's common about New Bedford, Wareham, and Bourne? They all have one thing in common. They probably have many things in common, but one thing is other communities often tend to look down on them. If you're, and let's just call it like it is. If you're anywhere on Cape Cod, you're likely to hear folks knock Bourne. If you're in Mattapoisett or Marion, they'll knock Wareham, and New Bedford gets it from all directions, right? So sure, these towns all have their challenges, but we do work in all these communities every day, and I'm always amazed at how often these underdogs are exceeding expectations and how often others just don't see it. So nowhere is that more true than in how Wareham has and continues to lead the Buzzards Bay region in dealing with the nitrogen pollution problem. No Bay community is doing more right now to cut nitrogen to the Bay than Wareham, and that has a lot to do with the leadership of Guy Campina. We all know here that nitrogen is the greatest threat to the health of the Bay, and the impacts are particularly pronounced here in Wareham's estuaries. Places like the Weweantic, the Wareham, the Agawam rivers, these are historically some of the most degraded places in the entire region. They're shallow, poorly flushed embayments with large watersheds. They have a natural disadvantage to dealing with this amount of nitrogen, and they were really showing it. In 2001, citing a decade of monitoring data from the coalition confirming that the Agawam River was having the worst water quality of any site in the Bay, the US EPA forced Wareham to upgrade its wastewater treatment plant. It was to become the highest performing nitrogen removing plant on the entire Bay, with achieving upwards of 90% pollutant removal. That system went online a few years later in 2004 at a cost of $22 million, paid for by Wareham residents. It was a massive investment for a less than affluent community, and it has been a huge success. Water quality improved immediately in the Agawam and the Wareham, and the door was open to the extension of sewer service to hundreds of new homes all over town, with water quality benefits rippling throughout those neighborhoods. So Guy Campina didn't do this, but he inherited this investment in 2010 when he became Wareham's Director of Water Pollution Control. He also inherited the challenges of sustaining this success in a political environment that was reacting to high sewer rates and plans for additional sewer expansions. Another director might have shelved Wareham's plan under these circumstances, but Guy doubled down, finding new opportunities to leverage the asset he knew he had in this model sewer system for the benefit of Wareham. But before we get to Guy the visionary, we've got to first and foremost recognize that Guy and his crew, many who I'm really happy to see are here tonight, run a complex operation. This is not easy work, this sewage treatment. The Wareham wastewater treatment system is a $7.5 million operating budget each year, employing 17 people, 57 miles of pipes transporting waste from more than 6,000 homes and businesses, and this system has to work every single day. That's his day job. At night, you'll find Guy at town boards and neighborhood meetings figuring out how to improve aging infrastructure and take the measured steps necessary to allow for even more homes to connect to the system. Second, not only is Guy operating the region's highest performing wastewater treatment plant, he's not satisfied with that apparently. Not to get too techie here, but Wareham's EPA nitrogen limit discharge is at 4 milligrams per liter. That's considered close to the limit of technology for a New England wastewater treatment plant. But when we look at Guy's discharge monitoring data that the town submits to EPA, we're often seeing that this plant is achieving 1 to 2 milligrams per liter. That's unheard of in other Bay wastewater treatment plants. And believe me, as an advocacy organization, the impact of having such a strong performer next door is huge when we are constantly hearing from other communities that these kind of levels are unrealistic. No, they're not. They happen here in Wareham. And beyond all of that, Guy is now leading a regional partnership to bring the benefits of the Wareham wastewater treatment plant to Bourne, Plymouth, and the Mass Maritime Academy, and maybe even Marion. These Upper Bay communities demand a lot of sewer cleanup, and Mass Maritime's campus is growing. All that means potentially more nitrogen flowing into the bay. But last year, Guy came to the Buzzards Bay Coalition with an idea. What if we could bring together, connect, and treat the entire Upper Bay, entire part of Buzzards Bay at the Wareham wastewater treatment plant? That would be possible if we could just move the Wareham discharge out of the Agawam to a deeper, better flush location, maybe like the discharge pipe already used by Mass Maritime. It would be a win for every community and a huge water quality victory for the Bay. Oh, and did I mention that costs are expected to go down for everyone under this scheme too? So it's not an exaggeration at all to say that this idea could be a total game changer in the effort to clean up and protect Buzzards Bay. So together with Guy, we filed a request for funding to design a system and test its feasibility of such a scheme, and EPA awarded us $200,000 a few months ago to get to work on this idea. So Guy's a Wareham native. When you talk to him about these issues, you can feel his excitement as a manager of a complex system, sort of the intellectual and political challenges of this work. He's into this stuff and he's good at it. But you can also feel his commitment to a better future for Wareham, for equitable sewer rates for its residents, as well as the improvement of its beaches and its shellfish beds for everybody to enjoy. You all know town government. You all know what we deal with every day working with these small towns. That right there is a very rare and extremely valuable combination in a public servant. But don't let any of this start going to your head, Guy. So recognizing that rare and valuable contribution Guy is making to Buzzards Bay and to the town of Wareham, and for his outstanding leadership in fighting nitrogen pollution, the Buzzards Bay Coalition is pleased to honor Guy Campina with the Buzzards Bay Guardian Award.
I promised I wouldn't drop it, so I'm going to set it down. I don't know where to begin. First of all, thank you. It's humbling. It's an honor. It truly is. What I do on a daily basis, I do because I love. To me, it's not work. It's exciting. And I get to meet so many exciting people. I get to meet so many. I've got engineers that overwhelm me. The town administration, they're incredible. And a lot of people before me put a lot of hard work into it, so I owe it to them. But what really drives me is I think of the opportunity I had going to the Onset Bay, grabbing some of the best fishing in the country, and the purity and cleanliness of the water. And I'm saddened because my children and grandchildren may not have that same opportunity. To eat scallops at will, to eat flounder at will, to swim at will, all those things that I had the honor and privilege of having, but they just may not get that. So it drives me, and I said, okay, they need the very same opportunities that I had. And so that drives me on a daily basis. I couldn't do this alone. I think Mother Teresa said that there's no one great act. There's a lot of little acts done with love. And I'm surrounded by some great people. I got engineers I got Joe and Russ. These guys, they keep me honest and humble. They insult me at will. They make me think, and, it's really incredible. I have a staff of ladies that every day they keep me grounded. They remind me of what I'm there for. And I appreciate all that because that gives me direction on a daily basis. I have daughters that just constantly remind me of my wit. They remind me that I'm over half a century old and all those things. So important that I know, and it helps me do what I do. It truly does. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I thank you so, so very much. And I just want to continue what I'm doing, and this regionalization thing is exciting. Corin has been helping me a lot. I just very briefly, and then I'll get out of your hair. Many years ago, I had the privilege of being on the Wareham Board of Health, and I used to say, "Oh, it's Corin again." It was just the way it was, but as time progressed and working with her in this endeavor, now it's oh wow, it's Corin, and I appreciate everything she does, and she's a driving force behind this whole effort, so she needs to be recognized for that. This award is coming to me, but there's so many people that made it possible, so I thank everybody, and I thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Guy. So I want to close the meeting tonight by simply saying another thank you to all of you, to our outstanding membership. We are truly a people-powered organization. Uniquely, 85% of our annual budget, what we do, everything you've heard about tonight, comes from our members. We respond to you, and we're only capable of making the change and making change as your support allows, whether it's in dollars, in volunteer hours, even in swim laps. We hope you all share the great pride in all of the work and accomplishments that you have helped create this year. I also want to extend a special thank you to our dedicated board of directors, many of you have here down in front, making sure I don't screw anything up here, who guide the ship so wonderfully and are so supportive of me and the entire staff. So thank you. And to our staff, actually a lot of them standing in the back, hiding back there. Staff, please stand up or wave your hand if you're back there. You guys stand up. You're over here. Right. So you've seen just a few people here tonight at the podium. I hope you'll take the time to talk to other staff who are here. I am honored and humbled every day for the opportunity to work with such a talented, smart, and committed team. The staff of the Buzzards Bay Coalition gets better each year. These are outstanding people who work for you in the Bay every day, and they really are amazing. So thank you very much. So speaking of that staff, they would not let me get away from this podium if I didn't remind all of you that you are all to swim on June 25th. Our 23rd Buzzards Bay Swim, 23rd year, is just 5 weeks away. About 230 people have already signed up. We want to get that number over 300 swimmers this year. So please think about spreading the word around our swim, supporting a swimmer, swimming if you can. It's a great event and says a lot about who we are and what we care about. So, until I see you all at the swim, can I have a motion to adjourn the 28th annual meeting of the Buzzards Bay Coalition? Second? All in favor? Thank you all very much.